Hey, this is Cameron, and welcome to the practice log. Alright, well, it's another night session, and I have some ideas for this one, so let's not waste any time. Let's go ahead and get to that chair, shall we? This one is for ridicules, because you posted a comment on how you missed the gas station beers. I got a crazy one here. 9.5% alcohol, Voodoo Ranger. I've been drinking the Sierra Nevadas so much. I have this dream of one day partnering with them. Wouldn't that just be so epic? I know it's completely, it's that, a dream. But you never know. In 10 years, Sore Hands Enterprises could be partnered with Sierra Nevada, and that would just be so wonderful. And then I can get free beer. And that's really what this is for. But, I do like Voodoo Ranger too, I have to admit. You said you're UK based. I'm not sure how you feel about the hazy IPAs. They're the juicy hazy ones. I know that they're not traditional, but man, they taste pretty freaking good. I love the traditional too though. Well, so to get to the video, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is that we are indeed in a practice log, and that's what we're doing today. We're gonna practice. The bad news is, I don't know, I just don't really feel like working on the huge right now. If you guys watch me, I'm sure that you watch Beatrix Guitar, but she has a podcast called Oh Sheet, which is a little dicey for this channel. I don't even like to insinuate any idea of cursing. And I watched the one with Brandon Acker, and they talked a bit about improv, and it made me kind of want to talk about improv, because I've talked about it a bit, but you basically never see me improvise. And I've gotten some comments about improv, and I'm gonna address them in a second. But I think today, what I'm gonna do, this isn't gonna be an improv lesson. This is just going to be me trying to throw up everything that I think about when I'm improvising, because improvising is actually a gigantic part of my musicianship. I've mentioned this once or twice, but I literally have spent almost a decade only improvising. What you're witnessing here is probably the most I've ever worked on pieces, ever. Improv is my roots, and I have a lot to say about it, and I feel like I do it in a very, I don't know if it's unique. I've done it a lot, so I have a lot of ideas for doing it. I have a lot of tricks and stuff that I would like to, share. Like I said, this isn't going to be a lesson in that I'm going to actually teach you anything. I'm just going to show you everything that I do. And then what I'm hoping is if I do something that you like the sound of, you can just maybe timestamp it or be like, what is that thing that you were doing there? And then I can make an actual lesson just on that concept. But right now, I'm not even going to worry about explaining myself. And I'm going to give you all of these prerequisites that are completely unreasonable. In order for you to play how I'm going to be playing, you have to be me, basically. You have to learn all the exact same stuff that I learned over 14 years of guitar playing, which is unreasonable because even people who are way better than me probably don't know exactly every branch that I've gone down. And we all have these obscure things that we do. So I'm just going to show you the obscure stuff that I might do. If you are curious and want me to explain it, I'm willing to do that. Just ask. So this will be an ongoing discussion. All right, let's actually get into some of those comments. I feel like I haven't been interacting with you guys as much, which makes me really sad, but it's just answering comments in every single one. I answer them for so long in the chair and it takes so long to edit. You'll still hear from me. It won't be from every video. All right, let's get into some of those comments. These are just little mentions, I just mentioned ridicule. Ridicules, it says your name here now. You talked about the arpeggios, the left-handed arpeggios that I was doing. In classical, we always talk about right-hand arpeggios. I'm gonna go over more of those left hands today. This one's from Steven Bornfeld. You're talking about working on the Segovia scales, but it by no means helps you with improvising. Yeah, it usually won't. I'll show you the scales that I practice to help me improvise, and I'll show you how I think about the fretboard and everything. A couple of mentions. This episode is just gonna be me drinking a really strong beer and just letting that pass my blood-brain barrier as I talk about improv, and I'm sure it'll be incoherent and crazy, but that's what this one's gonna be. So we're gonna ramble about improv. Let's do it. Let's first start things off with those mentioned unreasonable prerequisites. I'm gonna play all in E major today. That's gonna be my home key. You'll want to go ahead and just memorize every position of whatever key that you're in, which if you memorize one of them, you've memorized all of them. So all these notes. You want to go ahead and just get comfortable with all that. Now, there are two different schools of thought, I guess, in music that I'm kind of drawing from when I improvise. And really, in both of the schools of thought that I'm going to mention, there's really only two things that you can do. So, for the classical functional harmony, you can have dominant, tonic, resolution. And the other thing, which is more of a romantic, impressionist way of thinking about things, you can go up or you can go down. Those are the two things you do in that one. So, for example, I'm not really thinking about like tonic dominant resolution. When I'm improvising, I'm always thinking about my bass note, I'm thinking about the accompaniment, and I'm thinking about the melody. And let's just take that for example. So that's just an E major chord. Our home bass, we're as low as we can go, and we're also tonic, so that's what I'm thinking of. And our melody can just be sol la ti do. First, let's actually talk about just going up and down. Some things to kind of get, which this is all like unique to guitar, which we are guitarists, so it's okay to kind of recognize the patterns on guitar. I like to be able to just have my hand anywhere, and no matter where it is, I want to be able to play all the notes of the key that I'm in. So some places that we can think about: E major, obviously everything is in the key there. On the 2nd fret, every single one of those notes is in E major. 4th fret, every single note's in E major. And on the 9th, same deal. And now, so we have this. And now if we add this note, that's the 4. So before we're playing this, which if you want to just go through every note, that's the 2. And then off of that, we have the perfect 4th, flat 7, minor 3rd, 5th octave. Well, 2nd octave, right? So we have a minor triad, minor 7, and then plus the 11, I guess. But same thing here. Now add this. We have a major chord off of that. Just add the bass note. Obviously it's not a major triad, it's a way extended major triad, because we have the 6, 2, 5, major 7th. We're not being composers right now. Like, every single note doesn't really matter. All that I'm thinking about is just if it all sounds good together. And guess what? We don't have to write stuff like... Yeah, welcome to the modern age, buddy. We don't have to have perfect counterpoint. We can just pan around. And you can tell that I'm a little bit jazz influenced too. And I'm a little bit under the influence as well, which is ideal. Grab a beer. Drink responsibly though. What was I even talking about? Oh yeah, alright, so we're just gonna deal with this melody. When you're really comfortable with E major, maybe try moving that melody just one note higher for everything. If I just go through that and that's my improv, I automatically want to stop after the 4th time and go a different way. And then, you know, maybe change it. The obvious places to play the bass note are going to be on the 6th string and the 5th string. So, and sometimes the 4th. I mean, you can play it like anywhere, really. 6th and 5th are going to be your, like, old reliable. So, go ahead and get comfortable with moving around circle of 5ths. And what I mean by that, I'm just in E major, going to the left of the circle of 5ths. And what you can do with that is if you end up here, you can resolve. And I'm playing my scale up there. So my accompaniment, which is like my general scale that I just know is all on that fret, and I'm like repeating stuff down there. And I'm going through the circle of 5ths resolving. So you can hear it in there. So I'm playing like random notes of E major, which is fine because my bass line is extremely functional, right? And you don't have to follow that, but if you're here and you want to get your way down here, you can go down by just making your way down, or you can 2-5 your way down to 1, and that's pretty cool, right? 2-5-1, baby. My god, this is going to be so incoherent. So we've talked about bass line. Oh yeah, and go ahead and learn like your basic bar chords on every single one of those bass notes that we talked about. Let's talk about some ways to practice scales that I find useful. Enclosures are extremely important. So it's when you take a note, go to the note above, go to the note right below, and then back to the note in any orientation. So you could go low, high, you can go high, low, you can go chromatic. And when you're going chromatic, always go to the diatonic note that's above, and then the chromatic note below, which that's not chromatic, but here, the chromatic note below acts as a leading tone when you go up to it. Thinking of a melody like this one. Okay. A lot of times a melody that I play might just be an arpeggio with enclosures. So that's how you can shred a triad and still make it sound like a triad, right? Okay, so that's melody, and then accompaniment. That is where knowing all the scales comes in handy, because I can change my bass as long as my accompaniment is in the key that I'm thinking of. And then my melody's on top. I'm using my enclosures, changing the bass. And get really comfortable with the scale. So I saw some talk in the comments about like different ways to play scales. Play scales in every way you could possibly think of. So thirds. Know just every interval between every single note in a position of a key. Just be able to move around. And you might notice like what I'm doing here. You notice that I'm playing to a pulse, too. Playing to a pulse is super important, because that's kind of the foundation of, like, everything that we're doing here. Know the intervals that resolve, do and mi. So I keep playing, like, off notes like that. You can always justify going anywhere in a key by applied dominants, which are dominant chords that aren't your 5, that resolve you somewhere else in the key, and the tritone substitution, or if you're a classical nerd, the Neapolitan, or the German augmented 6, whatever you want to call it. Which, those are all different things, but they all kind of result in similar feels, because it's all that feeling. So I think of them more as tritone substitutions. Do you know what a tritone sub is? This is a D dominant. If you go a tritone away from that root and put a dominant chord on G sharp, the most important notes of that dominant chord, the 3rd and the 7th, are the same notes as your first dominant chord, but flipped. So the flat 7 of D is the 3rd of G sharp, and the flat 7 of G sharp is the 3rd of D. So what that means is, if I want to go from the 3rd scale degree bass note to the 2nd, I can justify just walking down chromatically to it, because it's just... And you can do that anywhere. And even simpler than that, any chromatic note can just be a leading tone going to any other note. You're allowed to go outside. I say you're allowed. Like, you can do anything you want. When I improvise, I want my chromatic notes to sound, like, intelligent. I want them to sound like I meant to play chromatically. Know your sequences, too. If you have like tritones like that, it's cool to know where they resolve. I'm by no means like a master of counterpoint. Like, you could barely even call me a novice of it. If you understand like basic little things like where tritones resolve and like little third sequences where you can go like 6th, 5th, 6th, 5th, 3rd, 4th, 3rd, 4th, that can be really cool to incorporate, and it makes your improv sound more composed, which, like, obviously, like, of course there's so much to be said about like improv being just like expression, which like sure it is, but all these things are just tools to help express yourself. That's never gonna hurt you. This is all kind of left hand stuff. How do you think of like rhythms and like arpeggios and stuff to play? You can take the pieces that you're learning and actually start applying it to your improv. Like, this isn't a piece I can think of, but surely that's something. It's just a 6/8. I do that so much. This is another thing I do. Just roll. Know your sixes and thirds. I think this sounds really cool. Repeat that. Repeat that with a different bass note. It's a little bit harder. I would maybe work that out. When you know your scales really well, you can really just run with a melody too. And just add a little bit of counterpoint to it. I love the resolution of Soldo. So where do you come up with the right hand stuff? You can literally just take the pieces that you're working on. Like something that I was thinking about today. Like that part of the Bach. All right. Like this thing. Use the rhythm of stuff that you already play. Was any of that coherent? I always say that I'm incoherent, but then I feel like I edit it together and it's like okay, and then all of you are really nice to me about it. I feel like this one might be my first actual incoherent video, but please forgive me. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to share what I'm thinking about. So I guess to summarize it, think about the circle of fifths, and that's like your functional harmony stuff. And then off of each of those notes, you can play literally any notes in the scale and out of the scale. Just have an idea of where they're going. And then you can make stuff that doesn't sound random, which it's okay to play randomly. You can express yourself any way that you're able to, but sometimes it helps with personal expression when you can actually lead somewhere where you want to go. Okay, that's enough of that. I've almost finished that beer, so to stop myself from going to the guitar again, let's just go ahead and get to that outro. Yeah, that's what this video is. This is very different from my usual video, but hopefully you found this enjoyable. I'm sure it wasn't helpful, but if you want me to elaborate on anything that I did, then just let me know. If you're like, nah, you can keep that to yourself, bro. I don't want to know how to do any of that because that sounded like nothing I want to play, then fair enough, I get it, that's fine. I hope you find your style that you want to play in, but this is just kind of how I move around the guitar, and like we've just focused on E major. Once you get comfortable with all the stuff that oh, I grabbed the guitar again, oh god. We are ending this video. Alright, I'll see you in the outro. Okay, man, we will see if this one even makes the cut, which is like, I have a pretty low bar generally, but this might be super low. But, you know, if you made it this far, and if you enjoyed all that, be sure to like and subscribe, all that stuff. Yeah, if you want lessons with me, which is always funny. Like, I love saying that even after I feel like I played really bad, because it's like, alright, you want lessons after hearing that? Yeah, just check the description, you can see how I do things, you know, be sure to contact me. Yeah, that, and, what else is there? Oh yeah, if you have any questions about anything, leave a comment, especially after this one. If you have a question, that's okay. I'll answer it. I'd like to make this improv thing like ongoing, and maybe you guys can even add stuff and I'll try stuff out, and that'd be kind of cool. Like obviously there's stuff that I want to improve with my improv. That'd be a cool discussion to have. That'd be a fun one. Yeah, and I feel like everyone can relate with improv because improv is so just fun to do. You know, you don't have to learn how to read music or anything like that. There's no real barrier of entry. Like you can play anything. Like this is just after 14 years of improv, what I've come to. All right, well, I'm gonna wrap it up here. So, I'll see you tomorrow.